Alright, welcome back to the channel. So if you saw the last video, you know that I got this thing running, and it actually sounds pretty good. Unfortunately, there's three issues that are keeping me from being able to ride it around and shake the rest of the bugs out. So the first problem was that the fan belt kept coming loose. The second issue is that the starter wiring is all horrible and broken. And the third issue, and probably the majority of this video, is going to be working on the hydraulics. So right now the front PTO shaft's just kind of flopping around. There's nothing hooked up to it. So I need to get all the pump on and all the hydraulic lines and all that kind of stuff installed and ready to go. So let's get right to it. All right. Okay, so this is the belt that was on there, and these are kind of all over the internet. They say they fit the cat part number. You can tell they're not the cat part though, because they're ridged on the back. So this is an actual cat belt. I just bought it. It cost twice as much, but it's also slightly longer. So the issue was this back ring actually goes on this threaded portion for the water pump here to tighten it. And then there's these spaces once in a while for the tab to go into to lock it. And the problem was that belt was so short, it was just like an inch or maybe a little bit more too short, so that this pulley was wider to accommodate it, because the tighter it gets, the more it tightens up the belt. So there wasn't enough bite for that lock to get in. Good, tight. Yep, come on now. There we go. Okay, so this belt is still too tight. I can't get this tight enough to get the lock on. So I got the cat pulley holder deal here, and I'll just crank on it a little bit. The belt will stretch out. I mean, it's a new belt, but I'll get it tight here. Okay, I got a temporary solution here. So this is the original lock that's supposed to go in there, but I made this up. This is out of C channel. I cut off one side. So it's gonna go in here and grab on that inner pulley, and I can tighten it down. And I know for a fact, I mean, this belt's gonna loosen up. So you can see here on this it's gonna sit just like that in that little groove there. Okay, temporary locks are in. And it's not coming loose. I'm sure there's someone out there that knows a trick to do this right, but you know, originally I was wrong. The non-cat belt I think would work fine. It's just this whole tightening procedure is tricky, and I'm not sure the correct way to do it. So these are 1 gauge cables. I have double outs coming, which I'm sure will help a lot. A ton of spring's gonna fly out of here when I do this. It smells like burning in there. So far, it's not looking good. Not looking good in there. This might be a send out for a refurbishment. All right, what we got here? Yeah, it looks like there's some O-rings in here that failed, and it's just full of rust. That's not good for the electronics, usually. Okay, based on the smell that's coming out of here and all the pieces that are coming out of the back, I'm not even gonna bother taking this apart. I'm just gonna take it into a starter shop. Okay, well, the starter shop shared my assessment, and I ended up with a remanufactured one here. The other one, every component in it was basically bad. I mean, you know, you saw the gears were all rusted up. Water had gotten into the housing, so everything inside was just destroyed. It's even amazing that it was even turning before. So fortunately, that shop does carry these because they service a lot of heavy machines and buses and that kind of stuff. So we had this in stock. You did have to order the correct Bendix, though, that would match up with what I had before. It's kind of like a canted 12-tooth Bendix. And this is what I'm out right here. So 490 bucks. One other way to look at it though is I don't have a pony motor. If I went and got a pony motor and had to rebuild it, it would be way more than $500. So it's just maybe a more optimistic way to look at it. It sucks kind of either way, but it's just the way it is. So anyway, before I install this, there's some bolts on this side of like the mounting plate nose cone, and you can clock it so it rotates. And before, and a couple people had noticed this, that the solenoid was sticking like straight out. So I'm gonna see if I can rotate it up a little bit and kind of keep it more out of the way. Whew, there wasn't a gasket on the old one. Where does this go? In here? And yep, it doesn't fit. But basically I can't turn it far enough without it hitting that gear. Fortunately, he should still have the old one. I can go back and just swap it out. Try to get a picture of the two side by side so you can see the difference. But I think this is slightly clocked different with respect to this plate. I went back to the starter shop and got the original nose cone. And I do have the part number for this, so I'll put the part numbers for all this in the video description, because I know a lot of people were asking about that on another video. Okay. Pretty much have to do it like here. They did give me a new bushing for this at least. Small screw I think is supposed to go against the solenoid, but there's no threads in there. Try this one. Nope, that's just a hole there. Looks like I have to rotate it one notch back. Which is pretty much where it was originally, I think. But that's as far as I can go. Otherwise, the solenoid is going to hit the fuel line or something else. There. There we go. Starting to leak solder out the back, so I think that's good. Let it cool off for a second. This gross part off. So you can see here it's tinned all the way up past the fitting into here. So that's how you know you got it tinned up good. I did get some heat shrink, 5/8, but it's not big enough to go around here, so I'm gonna have to get a bigger size to heat shrink this thing. Because it's basically just held in place with this set screw, which isn't the best electrical connection probably. But the nice thing is you can add other electrical connections to it. You can compare this to the size of the old cables. All right, let's give it a shot, see if it sounds any better. Okay, let's see how this sounds. So I'm gonna play a clip right before this of last time I tried to start it, or last time I started it. You can hear the starter sound. Let's try it now. See, compression's out, right? Is it in gear? Should probably check that. Whoa, yeah, that's spinning faster. Wow. Before it would just stop after that. Nothing's even hot. So that's a really good sign. I think we're good. All right, we'll give the grid heater a shot. I just want to test this out, see if it actually works. So run the grid heater for 10 seconds, which will start here, or 5 to 10 seconds. And then turn it off and then crank the engine. I'll have to keep my hand on the heater here and hot there. Pull that off, so then crank. I have to let go of the Well, I'd say that works pretty well. Unfortunately, it's only like 42 degrees in here. It's not very cold. So it's it'd be nice to see it in cold weather because that started right up. I mean, that was nothing. All right, just trying to mock up this dash a little bit, and this is gonna scratch the paint, but that's fine. It's exactly where it should go. Actually, you know what I need to do is verify that this hood I got fits. Otherwise, I need to return it to the guy that I bought it from. All right. Let's see if this fits. When I bought this, we didn't know if it was a D4 hood or not. Uh-oh. Yeah, this is not a D4. This is like an early D4 hood, I think, where the exhaust, because it's backwards, the exhaust hole, oh, it's not even the right size. It's way too short. Okay, we're in the cockpit here. So originally, well, not originally, but modified, this is the starter switch, which is welded right here. It's an interesting spot. I don't know why they would do this. The battery is going to come up to here. Air cleaner's here. I got this cat. This is the actual cat switch here, which I would like to use. You want it on this side so you can start it, heat it up while you run the decompression and all that in the throttle. By the way, this switch does allow for a warm-up circuit. Like you hold it and then you can start it. So this will the wiring for this will work for whatever I use for the heater circuit. Got some more stuff mounted on here. So I got the hydraulic line, intake. Obviously, I can't put the switch right there. It's gonna hit here. I don't know if I can mount it down lower because that might hit the battery. So I'm kind of starting to see why they put it here. Oh, there's like a location hole right here. Oh, that's right on the line. Whoops. Yep. So we turn it this way to warm it, that way to start it. It barely fits. So I got a new gauge. Oh, I could have sworn it said 2.5 inches in the listing. Second, would it fit on here? So this is the oil gauge side, and it's already a smaller one. Oh yeah. Well, at least they'll be matching sizes. Okay, I made up another one. Might as well replace this one's kind of disgusting. So, Whoa, that was on there tight. Okay, now that half the coolant's drained, I'm gonna put antifreeze in. Before I do that though, I need to hook up the temperature sensor into here. I already pulled the bolt out. And before I do that, I need to throw the dash in. So that's kind of why I've painted the dash right now, so I can get this out of the way. Could have saved myself a lot of trouble if I had bought 2.5-inch gauges instead of 2-inch gauges, but hey, do we put coolant on the right or the left? I'll say right. Is this gonna fit? Yo, thank goodness. This is a really long line on here, but I don't think you can shorten it because it's kind of, if you cut into it, I think there's like a gas or something in there, I'm not sure. I got those in. All right, the old overflow broke off, so there. Where'd that go? Of course, this copper will turn green, but I know. Okay, time to go over the hydraulic pump here. So I'm gonna go ahead and pressure wash it real quick before I work on it, but just so you can see, this is a number 44 pump, and it's a 6W8500 serial number. So there's many different manuals floating around for these, and we'll get into that later. Dog, bad timing. Good girl, go on, go on, go on, go lay down. There's a magnet in here. Not very magnety. That one has a little bit of crud in it. I've already pulled the filter out. There's nothing in there. But this is the bottom of the filter housing. It's quite, oh, there's fluid in there. Ugh. It's like jelly. Finally get this nut off of the stud. This looks like a homemade piece here. This is not welded very well, but screen in there. should do to clean this thing out. It's really gross inside. So I did break the end of this control lever off when I was removing the brush cage. I think it was like attached somehow and I didn't see it. But in my defense, this thing has obviously been broken and welded a couple times. Not very well. That weld looks terrible. Whoa, my gosh, that's heavy. Whoa! All right, well, there is definitely a lot of stuff in here that shouldn't be in here. But for the most part, I mean, everything's not rusted. I mean, that's probably a good sign. So I'm not an expert in hydraulics, although I probably better become one pretty soon. But to me, this looks like this is the pump. And then the intake is over here. And this is obviously the control valve. You turn up here and it pulls this in and out. So that's the intake maybe, and then it blows it out through. This is the filter housing, and it comes back in through here. This is probably the relief valve. Man, there's a lot of cleaning to do on this thing. Oh, yeah, it's loose on here. Man, this thing is dirty. There's just so much grime. This is all metal paste. So there's no O-rings around these two lines. I think looks like these come up through these unused ports. So that would make sense. They are just full of, this is wood right here. So typically you don't want wood inside of your hydraulic pump, but who am I to judge? Look at that. I'm really glad I took this apart so far because, oh my, yeah, I mean, God, every nook and cranny on this thing, man. Whoa, all right, well, never mind. So you can actually remove the bushing for the control lever here, but this thing is pretty tight. So I'm gonna leave this all in here. All right. A lot of shims in here. Be careful of these. So that's the pump core there. That bearing has some stuff in it. Let's protect these shims. Some of these are all bent. These shims I guess they're meant to curl around on this inside part, maybe. Uh-oh. So a stripped half, use a 12 millimeter. There we go. So new grease seal there. All right. What was that, like this? It was like this, like this. keep those together. Okay, I was doing some more reading here. So basically, the high wear parts of this pump is this ring and then these bushings on either side. And it says actually that this rotor with the vanes, it'll outlast 2 of these like sets if you replace these. And I can definitely see that. There's definitely some wear in here. I can feel it with my finger. There's like a lip here. I'm sure the other one's the same. It's like a chip out of the bearing right there. I'm not sure what that's about. Okay, seal. Okay, this is the relief valve. There's some shims on here. Oop, there's a little plunger in here. This is just the pickup, I'm assuming. See, even these bolts, like there's just grime up inside these bolts where there's no threading. So that's a sign that everything is dirty. That seal's seen better days. Got a plunger. So I'll leave all this together, but I'm going to clean this all up. So we don't want to mess this up. Ooh, look at that dirt. This is why we're here. Ooh, that's a strong spring. 2 springs. There's so much grime in here. I know I keep saying that, but more stuff in here. Well, that's about it for this thing. I'll leave the fittings on, but I just need to flush this out, clean it up really good. All right, so because this thing was so dirty, I am going to take these top plates off that are blank outs, because there's probably grime that has gotten up in through this channel on each side. I mentioned before I'm not going to take this control shaft out because it's nice and tight in here. I do see one issue though. You can see right there, maybe that there's a big gap there and it just looks ugly. I think that gap, there should be no gap there because there's a lot of space for it to move up. Oh yeah. Yeah, so check this out. All this right here, that's not supposed to be worn off like that. So all of this metal was floating around in this hydraulic system because this thing was too low and it was rubbing against here. Got everything broken down here as far as I want to go. So basically there's just going to be a ton of cleaning here, which I'm not going to film. It's just cleaning. It's not very exciting stuff. Here's all the wear components. So there's 1 seal, 2 bearings, and then just a handful of O-rings. The other big wear component obviously is the pump itself. Ideally, you would find new bushings and a ring because definitely the ring's worn and the bushings have some scratches on them. But you know, I'll see if I can find those. I mean, if you can find them, I'm sure they're really expensive. I might not want to pay it. So that's where we're at with that. And by the way, worst case on this is if it is worn, that just means that the blade goes up and down slower than, well, probably just up slower than you would want. Painting is kind of taken over. It's a lot of stuff to paint. I'm doing all the hydraulic stuff pretty much. So one thing I did find though that's kind of interesting. So this is where the filter goes in the pump housing, and the 2 bolts were missing when I took it out. And a couple of people told me that was because that's where the cat pump guard mounts. I'll throw a picture up of it. But in reality, what had happened is like this plate is kind of smashed. One of the bolts was broken off in the casting, and the other one was just full of mud. So at some point something had broken it. Then there's these brackets which go, and then they go to the radiator. And then there's this other nut, which I think the guard mounts to. So look on this one, there's a crack right here. This one's even worse. And then this is completely gone. So I think what happened is they rammed into something with that stock cat cover and it just broke it off. Now it's funny I would just find this because earlier on I tried this hood on and this is not the right hood. I think this is like a 5U hood or something else. It's just not, even the holes aren't correct, but it's 2 inches too short. So I went back to the place where I bought it from. He didn't have any other hoods, but I asked him if he had any radiator guards and I bought this off of him. So I'm pretty sure this is going to fit on mine. It has the cutout for the hydraulic lines. I measured the width and it matches on the radiator. And this is a much stronger guard than that stock cat one. It's made out of thicker steel, and you can actually take these bolts out and pull this plate off if you need to, service anything. Got the new nose cone kind of test fitted here just to make sure it's going to fit. And I'm glad I did because it actually mounts, those 2 brackets I've just wasted a bunch of time fixing, it mounts to one of them. So I'm not going to be able to use those brackets at all. Once I line it up, I'm going to have to drill my 4 holes into that square. But man, I like the look of it. Also a big waste of time to paint the letters black because, I mean, the hydraulic lines are going to come through right there too. You're not going to be able to see any of that. Okay, before I put this pump back together, I just want to share quickly a few things that I learned about it. So this is a number 44 hydraulic unit, and the serial number is a 6W8000 series. There's no information on parts or like procedures for any of this stuff in the normal tractor manual for the 7U. So you need to get the parts manual, there's a lot of different serial number series in here. So you want to, what was mine, a 6W? So this 6W5000 up. So this will work for me. There's also these 2 manuals that I found. This one is completely worthless. All the information in here is in this one. For the service manual, actually a subscriber kind of just randomly out of the blue sent me an email and let me know he had the PDF of this. I was looking around, I did not know where to find the service manual for the number 44 hydraulic unit, but this is what it's called. And this actually has the number 41, 44, and 46 hydraulic control group. There's also a number 40 scraper, and then there's like rebuilding the cylinders, a lot of other useful information. So I'm really happy. This is a huge thank you to Simon in Australia for sending this to me. This was not on the Antique Caterpillar website library. There was some parts manuals, but this is the most complete part manual I found. It contains all 5 of these groups. One other quick note, I really don't have any use for this anymore when I'm done. And it's the most complete parts manual I found for the 44. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut it up and scan it. And I'll upload both of these to the Antique Caterpillar website. It's acmoc.org. If you're a member, you can view it for free. If you're not a member, if you went out and bought both these manuals, it would be more expensive than buying a year membership. So just something to think about. And this one is already up there. As far as parts ordering, I get asked this a lot. I found all of these parts on eBay. I just type in the part number and they're there. You can usually pick between, this is an OEM cat seal right here, but there's also some generic ones, and that usually you can tell when you go to the listing if they're generic or OEM. So I got new bearings. The only issue I had was finding the front seal, but after searching online, I found this old service bulletin from 1958, and they give the new seal number, 1J162, that's the old one. So I found that one, no problem. The one part I could not find on eBay was this. This is the hydraulic filter. And I think this is a cat only part. There is no filters that I could find like on interchanges that were even close to these dimensions. This is like a $70 part. And this is the only part in this entire project I had to go to the cat dealership to get. So I painted all the stuff while it was assembled, so I didn't have to tape everything off. I think there's one more O-ring in here I missed. Yep. There's O-rings right there. I got the rings I need. This. Should probably lube this up a little bit. Oop. Upside down. That's right. So I just checked a picture to verify this thing does go like this in this orientation with the handle sticking out. Not super ergonomic, but I'm gonna leave it as is until everything's all hooked up, and then I might try to flip it around or see what I can get away with. All right, hasn't rusted out inside, that's good. So to clean this, I just hosed it down with brake clean and then pressure washed it, and then just wiped some WD-40 on it to keep it from rusting while I painted it. Earlier on when I was taking it apart, I found some material that I thought was wood, and there was actually a bunch of it in here, but I think in reality what it was hardened gasket maker or something like that, some kind of sealer. So I think it's really a bad idea to use RTV or anything like that for the gasket. So I got some actually legit gasket material here. I'm gonna make this up real quick. This stuff's kind of difficult to work with. I realize I just screwed up over here, but that's okay. I can make another little piece and then join it together with a tiny little dab of RTV later. So I'll just store the parts in here as I clean them. This one goes in there. Shims. I think there's torque specs in the manual for this stuff. Okay, I'll torque this all down at the end. For now, it's fine, just in case I didn't do it right. For the control valve, this was the hardest thing I think to remember how to go back together. These are genuine cat seals. So these two outer ones aren't used, so there's no reason to put an O-ring there. I think this is like the most complicated thing to remember the order for. So, actually, according to the parts diagram, I didn't have this set up right. The washer, and then these are two springs. This. I guess this goes on first. Makes sense to tighten. Get in there. And then we put this on. Uh-oh, I forgot to put this in. There we go. So the only torque spec it gives is for these 6 bolts. It says 720 inch-pounds. That's 60 foot-pounds. All right. And there should be a float on here too somewhere. So when you go all the way up there, I think that's the float. Yep, there it is. There we go. All right. I think we're good. Uh-oh. Just lost that piece of metal. Okay, got the strainer cleaned out. And I made up a new gasket. Okay, so this is the pump cartridge. This is the one wear component I'm not going to replace. I did locate a couple of them, but they were about $1,500. The one thing I will do is I'm going to flip these fins around, and I'll show that on the other camera that does better close in, so you can see that. But besides that, it's just too expensive to replace, and it's really not even that worn, so it should be fine. Is the unworn side, which was inside of the impeller. So you can see the profile there. It looks, you know, brand new. This is the side that's the wear side. It's rounded over a lot more. It's really not that bad. I mean, it would be fine, but while I'm here, what I can do is So if it's spinning this way, this is the wear surface. All you can do is you want the chamfer to be on this side. So what you got to do is turn it around, and there you go. You got a brand new surface as the wear surface. No chip out of this bearing. This goes in like this. Yeah, there's a hole in the back for this pin. And I'm guessing you don't want any slop on there, right? Okay, well, believe it or not, there is an actual orientation for this. This hole right here has to line up with this. There we go. Trying to keep these shims all in line. So the original had a double lip, but this fits pretty much perfect. All right. Sits right here. Okay, that makes sense. Kind of. I only had one new 5/16 bolt, so forgive me. Spins nice. There was one more O-ring on here. There's a little bit of end play there. There's no spec for any of this stuff, so hopefully that's okay. This goes on here. And then this, I cut all the paint off this so it mounts nice and flat. I'm pretty sure this is a jury rig setup, but what are you gonna do? There we go. Yeah, these are just way too short. Get some. Gonna be interesting. Just let it do it naturally. There we go. Man, I'll never forget when I took this thing off of here. This was like the first big heavy thing I ever removed off this machine. I was wearing like sports shoes, just really, really dumb stuff. Okay, it is very hard to get those nuts started. You basically have to pull the whole pump out just to get them, fit them in there, and then get them on. And they're also fine threaded, so there's a lot of cranking on there. But they are on. So I'm putting this stuff on pretty light, and I'm going to let it air dry for a while to tack up. Obviously, I don't want to have a ton getting squeezed in and running around through this hydraulic system. Some 3/8 studs would have come in really handy right about now. What's going on? Is this backwards? Does it go? Whoops. All right, take 2. Like I was saying, 3/8 studs would have really helped here. All bolts are in. Now let's make sure this gasket seats properly. Okay, well that should have gone a lot easier, but it's on. Now it's going to be seen, like I said, I'm not putting these brackets in because the nose, that hard nose I got, has to mount to here. So I don't think these are like structurally necessary. I mean, there was a lot of bolts holding this thing into the middle. So I guess we'll find out, but I'm not super concerned. Okay, so before I waste any more time modifying the intake, it's 41 degrees in here. Just want to check to see if the intake heater works. If it starts up really easily, then I should be good all the way down to at least 30, which is like 99% of my use case here. Take heater on. Oh, that's hot. Oh, there we go. Lost the heater. So how does this work here? It has little insulators in there. Okay, this is pretty simple. Yeah. This is a good sign, so it's flexible, which means I can bend it into any shape I want, right? There we go. All right, so the plan here is you can kind of just bend these, right? So why not bend them into the shape you want? I think there's a shaft that goes in there for the governor. So I wouldn't want to do it on top because the hood, maybe this side. I'm gonna have to drill a hole in this thing. That's kind of the point of no return. I don't know if I have enough room for both of them. It's gonna be tight. Yeah, there we go. All right. This is the hard part. It actually lined up really well in here. Oh. There we go. I drilled that hole just big enough for that insulator ring to come through. I think this was an insulator. So we should have 0 ohms there. Now, are we shorted out? 6 ohms. Yes, we are shorted out. Oh yeah, we're shorted. It's fixed. So what was happening there was actually it slipped out and it was right on the end, since these aren't, these can slip out, and it was pushing in. So this is only one. Let's give it a shot though, see if it works. Okay guys, we are at 40 exactly on the intake, but the ambient temperature, much colder air, 33 degrees right now. Oh, look at that spider. This is just with one coil. Oh, I see some smoke coming out of the front. That's a good sign probably. Or it's a bad sign, I don't know. There is probably grease all over those coils. Let's give it a shot. Give it another try. Well, that's kind of promising. So I'm gonna break this back apart, and I need to pressure wash it and clean it up and paint it before I install it. So you'll see it in another video. Okay, so here's the heater here. So to protect it from shorting to ground, I'm gonna have to put a fuse in, probably over here. 200 amp fuse. I think each one of these heater elements uses 100 amps, so I'll just throw a 200 in for now. That way I can add the other one later if I need to. The second thing is if this relay fails where it's closed, I should put a light here. That way if it fails closed, the light will stay on, like just on the dash or something, so I know that the heater is still running, which I don't want it to run for more than about 5 or 10 seconds or else it's going to start heating up the wiring. The only other thing to worry about is if the heater element fails, like chunks of metal might go flying into the intake, so I'll put like I'll make some kind of screen up right here to catch anything that might fall in there just to be safe. By the way, one other mod required if you remove the pony engine is this L bracket, which was already on there, thankfully. But that has to hold up the intake because otherwise it's supposed to bolt down to the pony. Anyway, that's it for this for now, for the intake heater. But I'm actually impressed with how well this works for how kludged it is together. So is this gonna work in the depth of winter in Alaska? No, I seriously doubt it. But I'm building this machine for where I live, and out here it's pretty mild. Doesn't get too cold that often, so I think this will work fine for me. Nice and quick and easy. The date code on these hoses is from 20 years ago, January 2002. And they don't look super bad, but there is some wear spots on them. They're pretty, I don't know, they're a little bit old and dry rotted. They're also kind of skimped. I think this is supposed to come all the way up to here, like on this one. But it looks like they got maybe a little bit lazy when they were crimping these. What did they do to these barbs? This was not me. That first fitting looked kind of bad. It's bent. I don't know if you can tell there, but that's quite horribly bent. And then these are all jacked up. Yeah, this one looks bad too. I did not grip on here. These were, maybe they cut the old hoses off. I'm not sure what happened here. Okay, I've gotten 7 of these pulled out, and this is gonna be the hardest one because this one is actually seated all the way up to this bar right here. The other ones were off by about 1/2 inch, but this is the trick I learned. It's actually not too hard to get these off. So what I'm doing is I'm setting the vise so it's clamping just right on the other end of the fitting and not super tight. I just got a vice grip here, and this isn't a surface that you need to worry about scratching. Spray a little penetrating oil on there, kind of break it free, And then as you turn it, you want to tighten the vise. And what that's doing is it's pinching the hose and it's kind of shooting out the fitting on the other end. This hose might break. It's kind of worn. So I'm going to move the hose up just a 1/4 inch. And once it gets going, it pops out pretty quick here. And then tighten as you turn. There we go. Let's slide this up a little bit. There we go. All right. So you got it off with no damage. It's bent, but I didn't bend that. So I got all these off of that same method, but you can see someone went nuts with an angle grinder. These are all cut pretty badly. These 3 are bent. I don't know if you can tell, but they're bent. This one is the only one that's kind of okay. I got the exact same kind of hydraulic hose. This is 3/4 inch, 2-wire hose. Yeah, 100R 2AT. This is exactly what was on there before. This is actually what the manual calls out too, so. All right, so before these go in, these have some burrs on them. There we go. Got it started. Oh, this isn't that bad. Probably need to move this a little bit. You know, I've been dreading doing this for 2 weeks, and this is really easy. There is a little bit of marring here, but I mean, it shouldn't matter since it's just the protective covering. I'll try to maybe tighten it a little bit more so it doesn't slide. Probably don't want to forget these. Yeah, that's pretty clean. So there you go. Just do this 3 more times. So these are the clips. I'm using, these are 3/8 fine, which is what was on there originally, and then I'm gonna use nylon nuts to hold them on. Now this may seem janky, but keep in mind the system only runs at 1,000 PSI, which is like 1/4 of what modern systems run at. Oh, lost an O-ring. It's a good idea to paint this part black. It actually matches pretty nice. Okay, before I go any further, I should probably put fluid in this thing and make sure it's not going to leak. The manual says to use 10-weight motor oil, but if you look up what that equates to in ISO, it's ISO 32 hydraulic, so that's what I'm going to use. That's pretty much what everyone else uses too. And I bought 10 gallons of this stuff because I have to refill all the cylinders and all the pipes. Oh, that's it. We're full. This is also really hard to film, but I did go up here and there was that one other grease fitting on that shaft. So I gave it enough, and then you can actually kind of see it oozing out down there. I mean, you can't see it, but I can see it. the hoses go on here, but these are just placeholder bolts. There's not a whole lot of leeway, so maybe I just need to, oh yeah, bend it like this. Let me loosen it up on the other side. Let's do it. Let's do it. Come on, it's so close. Oh, there we go, got some leverage. Oh yeah. Oh, I think I got it. There we go. Jeez, way much easier. Might have gotten it there, jeez. All right, well, that was difficult. Got an O-ring on there, right? All right, got both these hoses on. I'm happy about this because they're not touching. The previous hoses were touching and they had kind of worn each other out, but this is working out pretty nice. All right, hose is on, and I have good news and bad news about this pump. So the good news is it did not leak last night. It's the next day. The bad news is I was cleaning up the work area over here and I found this O-ring which had fallen down here. So, and I know right where this goes. I'll show you where it goes on the screen. I don't think it was actually ever put on properly. Obviously someone has been in this pump before. But in the manual, it has the shims right here up against that hub. And then this is the O-ring right here. So the O-ring is supposed to go on after the shims. But when I pulled it off, the shims were on top of the O-ring, which is why the shims were all bent. So I'm not sure if I should try to put it back the right way or if the shims are so far bent that it's just going to create leaks and I should just put it back on how it was. Of course, I'm tempted to not put it back on at all just because it's not leaking. But, you know, there's a lot of times where it's okay to be lazy, but this isn't one of them. I'm gonna have to fix it. Fortunately, I haven't run the machine yet, so there's no oil in any of the pipes, so I can just take off this hard pipe and then cork those and pull the thing off again. It shouldn't be too hard to swap that back on. But if you have an idea about if I should put the O-ring on top or behind the shims, let me know. So unfortunately, I was hoping to have this thing running in this video, but I think in the next video, it's just gonna be, once I button this up, probably mostly off camera, maybe we'll just make the next video riding this thing around and seeing what else is wrong with it. A couple other quick things. Earlier on in the video I mentioned this hood wasn't fitting and this is absolutely the wrong hood. So I fortunately did find another hood that is the right one and it's hopefully in the mail right now. So there was a lot of junk in the pump, which means there's probably some junk in the cylinders. I mean, I've cleaned out the rest of the lines. I'm hoping the cylinders aren't leaky, but if they are leaky or they drift, I'm gonna have to fix them. I mean, having a dozer with a blade that drifts is probably not a good thing. Oh, it's looking pretty nice up here. Okay, I see a lot in the comments, people asking about what's left to do on this project and what I'm doing after this. I'll do a quick tour here. I mean, a lot of this stuff, this is like over a year ago and people haven't seen every video, which is fine. But so here's kind of what's left on the project. Here, the first off is this nose cone, which I just bought. And then there's the blade. So this blade is the one that was on it. It's a cat blade and it's been modified with this tilt cylinder here. So you control the tilt function with that little hydraulic control box that I rebuilt in this video. And these probably need some new lines, but that's about it. And over here I have the skid plate. So this thing's in pretty good condition. I think that's bent right there, but nobody's perfect. So I just need to clean this up and put it back on. And then if you notice these two mount spots right here, I'll show you what those are for in a sec. And finally I have the brush cage over here. This is probably one of the nicest brush cages I've seen on any of these tractors I've looked at. It's got a nice screen back here to protect me from when the winch cable breaks. Little rain gutter there. And then the nice thing though is the wall thickness on the steel is fairly thick. And just as a comparison, that tractor that I pulled the winch off for a salvage workshop, that was made out of like plumbing pipe. But this is proper pipe. And the other nice thing is the front of the brush cage mounts to those mount points on the skid plate, not to the side of the radiator, which is what a lot of them did. And the issue with doing that is when you get kind of larger branches, if they fall and hit this, they can break the radiator in half. Of course, I do have that nose cone that mounts to the radiator, but we're not going to be hitting big trees with that nose cone, just, you know, smaller branches. Regardless though, if a tree falls on this thing or you roll the tractor, I mean, this brush cage ain't going to help you. It's going to be a closed casket either way. And I look at the welding on here on this roof skin. This was done by, not by Cat, but I think an actual company made this, made it well. Up inside, there's even a little headrest there. I'm sure I'm gonna smack my head against that. As far as when the dozer's done, well, I don't know, some people I guess haven't seen this. So this is my Hitachi 120. I bought this 8 months ago. There's a video on it. There's actually 3 videos on it where I got it working and then got it moved over here. But this is the next project, is getting this thing up and running. It's got a lot of problems. But yeah, it needs a lot of work. So that's what's next. All right, guys, well, sorry this video took so long. It was a bit more work to get all that hydraulic stuff done than I was planning on, all the painting. So the goal for next video would be to just hopefully spend a lot of time on the machine and moving it around and seeing what other issues there are with it before I go to hook up the blade and all the rest of that stuff. So thanks a lot for watching, guys, and I'll be back soon.